All right, Mike Silver, a valuable member of The Volume. When breaking news happens, Mike Silver happens. I love that. That sounds like a billboard.
That's cool. That would be cool. Yeah, Colin, I know you remember a year ago, or a little more than a year ago, we were on together when the Devontae Adams trade happened to the Raiders, and we were like, whoa, because that was a little more sudden. But yeah, this is, I think it's an exciting day, and I don't want to gloss over this for Jets fans. This is awesome. The Jets are getting one of the best quarterbacks of all time, possibly with years left. They have a team that was good enough to almost make the playoffs last year, despite injuries and Zach Wilson being the quarterback for a lot of it. And Aaron knows this offense intimately because Nathaniel Hackett's now the coordinator. So people might say, oh, it's great for the Packers. It's win-win. We could get into all that, but it's not win-win. The Jets win the day today, in my opinion.
Yeah, and this isn't perfectly analogous, but I've 3 times traveled cross country and took a new job. The first year, whether you're talented or not, with new environment is hard. It's choppy. Yeah. I hope Aaron plays for a second year. First of all, new defensive coordinators, new conference, new environment. It's everything, new neighborhood. And if you go look at Aaron's history, first year starting the league, little bumpy. First year with Hackett, little bumpy. I think he's going to do really well. I kind of feel like it's a 10-7, 11-6 team. I think their schedule's not the easiest.
No.
But what's a realistic expectation to you?
That's a great question, because if you look at it on paper, you say, yeah, the AFC is a gauntlet, right? And the AFC East certainly is not going to be easy. And they are the Jets. They do have some dudes. I mean, both rookies of the year. Breece Hall was that good before he got hurt. Elijah Vera-Tucker was hurt last year. They've got some dudes, and I think they will play pretty good defense. You're right about year one, because that was the case in Green Bay, which was year one in the LaFleur Hackett offense.
Yeah.
And they did go 13-3 and reach the NFC Championship game with a very good team, but it was not humming offensively the way that you would expect an Aaron Rodgers team to. But I think, I look at Favre, his first year there, which everyone, revisionist history, thinks sucked, and then he went to Minnesota and was really good. But Favre had those Jets 8-3 right up in playoff contention. He was in MVP contention. He suffered an arm injury that essentially made him noodle arm the rest of that year, and it didn't go great. But this is going to give them a real jolt, and franchise quarterbacks affect teams in ways that go beyond what most of us see. It just changes the energy and the vibe of the organization. It lends a credibility to the meetings, the practices internally, and he's going to pull a game or two out that the Jets aren't used to pulling out, and that's going to potentially snowball. So I think playoffs is a very realistic possibility. I think once you're in the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers, if you're peaking at the right time, that could be really, really exciting. And I guess the other thing I want to say, because it's confusing, right? I would, if you told me, hey, the Packers and Aaron Rodgers have decided to come back for one more year, I wouldn't be as wildly upbeat about the Packers, and here's why. I just don't think you'd be getting the same guy in Green Bay. The guy they had last year is not the guy that I expect the Jets to be getting today, and that's not fair necessarily to the Packers, but it is a reality, and that's why I think Jets fans should be fired up.
Well, yeah, I think all relationships can run their course, and I think the Green Bay situation, there was a lack of trust on both sides. There was a little bit of animosity for different reasons. I think you'll get a highly focused and energized Aaron. I hope it's for 2 years, and I do think the Jets will be a viable team. Year ones are difficult, as I've said, for a lot of situations. It's interesting with Jordan Love. I don't know what we have. Here's the good news. He's been there 3 years. The size is not an issue. He's a big kid that moves well. If you took Jordan Love today, even with what little we've seen, after Bryce Young, he'd be the number 2 pick in the draft, right? Like there's stuff there. I don't know if he can step to the line of scrimmage and audible in and out of stuff. I don't know, trailing late in the game, 3rd and 11, right. How is he equipped to do that? I have no idea. But I will say this, it's a good team that needs another receiver, another tight end, and an edge rusher. And I talked to 2 GMs last week that said it's the best tight end class in years and the best edge rusher class in years. So I do feel like this, Mike. I've always believed years ago you gave a quarterback 3 years. But now with the 7-on-7 camps and private coaching, I always say Thanksgiving of year 2, you know what you have. But Jordan Love's been there for 3 years. I feel like we'll know by Thanksgiving what kind of we have. 8-9 games in, there'll be a set, because the NFC, Mike, it's not a gauntlet. There's a lot of W's in this conference.
Yeah, I think that's realistic. I came from a different era where quarterbacks almost always sat, and when they didn't, they took lumps as great as they were. Aikman, everyone but Marino, essentially. But that all changed with Matt Ryan and Joe Flacco, and for a lot of reasons you stated, it's a different landscape now. I'd say the good on Jordan Love is, there is some definite upside. I remember one offensive coach I really respect telling me before the draft where Jordan Love was drafted, I would take this guy first overall. So there is something special about the package. The early reviews were not good. And, it's not quite Trey Lance coming from North Dakota State or Carson Wentz, but it's a guy coming from a smaller program, more like Josh Allen, right? And, early on, I think Packer coaches and players were kind of like, man, if this guy has to play, we're in real trouble. And now, again, the standard is very high. So that's the good part. Maybe from what I've heard, he has gotten a lot better. He has developed. He works at it. He's a good kid. There's some definite upside. I think the hard news is this delusion that many Packer fans seem to have, and others, that, Aaron waited for 3 years and look what happened. Like, this has happened twice in NFL history, where a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback was succeeded immediately by another future first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback. And it was tumultuous both times. Montana to Young. The Niners did not get nearly as many years out of that combined. The Packers somehow got 15 and 15. 3 decades of uninterrupted, transcendent quarterback play that could cover up all ills and pull games out of nowhere. And I just, especially young Packer fans, I'm looking at you guys going, it could work out well. They could be a well-rounded team. Jordan Love could be good. The odds of having yet another transcendent quarterback just take the reins and keep it rolling are not good. And you're not going to notice that necessarily week 3 in the third quarter against the Bears when you're, marching down the field. But you're going to notice it in December on 3rd and 18 against a really good team, at times where Aaron and Favre before him were able to just do insanely magical things. I just don't think that's going to be the case, and that's not a slight on Jordan Love. I'm just trying to be realistic.
Yeah, listen, if he was as good as a Burrow or a Mahomes, they would not have signed Aaron to an extension. Right. Because there was drama 3 years ago. If he was as bad as Zach Wilson, they know it. And they would have kept. So my takeaway, he's somewhere between 12 and 20. He's probably in that mix, which...
if it goes well.
Yeah, he's somewhere between Kirk Cousins and Jimmy Garoppolo. He's somewhere in that.
But it's also possible that he is Zach Wilson and just hasn't played a lot. I think he's a more mature person and all that, but but I hear you. Yeah, like if it goes the way they're hoping it will go, and they've got good infrastructure around him, and Matt LaFleur is a really, really good coach, I think he has a chance.
Mike, I think they're going to look like last year. They're going to be at the 9 and 8 sort of level, but it's going to be the opposite. So with Aaron, he didn't want to work with the young receivers. They start slow, schedule weekends, they finish strong. I think because Jordan Love's going to be totally committed to the young guys and nobody has film on him, they're actually a pretty good team until Thanksgiving. At Thanksgiving, the break, You get film. People now have had their buys. And now I think people take stuff away from Jordan Love that he had in the first 8 or 9 weeks. I think they're going to end up the same place last year's team did. A team that would be sub 500 in the AFC, potentially above 500 in the NFC, but it is his first year. The kid hasn't seen live bullets, played from behind, Sunday night games. I think a realistic expectation is Jets 10 wins, Packers 8-9. Feel about right to you?
Yeah, and he's going to have a tough makeup, because I remember being out on Aaron Rodgers Island his first year as a starter in 2008 when there was a lot of skepticism. And because of my Cal ties and the fact that, the blind squirrel nut theory, I was right on this one. And I had to weather that first year when he was 6-10. Now, he played really well a lot. There were a lot of close games he couldn't pull out. He had some injury stuff. So a lot of people were still very, very skeptical after 08. In 09, he was obviously much, much better. And then we had that epic playoff game against the Cardinals and Kurt Warner. And, I covered that game and remember being pretty sure that we were seeing a guy who was going to ascend.
Yeah. So I thought the compensation was reasonable. It was mostly what we thought, which is the Packers are either going to get a couple of 2s or a 2 and a 1 if Aaron plays. I don't think there's a real winner. I guess the winner is the team that gets Aaron Rodgers, but I didn't think the compensation, it was sort of what we thought, right?
Yeah, I liked it. I thought, it was creative. There was some compromise. That swap of 13 and 15 was a good creative way to change the value. Both teams, could have stared down longer, but there was good motivation to get it done. I thought if you're the Packers, then you're getting rid of him. I thought Brian Gutekunst did a really nice job. I liked his haul, all things considered. And if you're Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh, you got to have them because, you're coaching for your jobs, presumably, and it's all set up for that. And B, I know the Jets just wanted some recognition that if he doesn't play that second year, that they would have given up a lot. And now they have at least a little bit of protection that way. So I actually thought both GMs did a really nice job of creatively splitting the difference and doing it in a timely manner.
Give me your prediction on the New York media, which can lean ferocious and left, and Aaron Rodgers, who's now supporting Robert Kennedy. He's the anti-vaccine candidate. Listen, say what you want. There's 2 different ways to write the same story. Do you think it'll be a rough first year? What do you think Aaron, who's had some rabbit ears, you got the Daily News, the Times, the Outspoken Post. There's sports talk radio in New York can be brutal. WFAN, wildly entertaining, and outspoken. How do you think it goes year one?
It's a great question. I look at it the same way I look at any coach going into that market or anyone who's kind of thrown into it. If you win, it's going to be awesome. Eric Mangini was on The Sopranos as Mangenius when he won early. Rex Ryan was loved, through foot fetish scandal and all. It was all good. And a lot of ways you could keep living off that. If it goes bad early and you appear to be defensive or out on a fringe or, combative, then it's a tougher place to have thin skin about it. I don't know that Aaron will or won't. Aaron has ways to communicate directly. It's a different era. But, I think if it goes well early, he will be getting a lot of love from those back pages, and a lot of the, potential trigger points will be, he's got a different view on the vaccines, but hey, did you see that pass on 3rd and 12?
Right.
But if it's not going so well, then yeah, sure, people are going to be looking for ways to poke and prod, and we'll be watching.
The NBA playoffs are upon us. 20 teams get in, all trying to get that one crown. for last-minute amazing deals to watch your favorite NBA team. It can be the Warriors, it could be the Kings, it could be the Sixers, it could be the Bucks. To get great last-minute deals on amazing tickets, check out Game Time, the fastest-growing ticketing app in the United States. It's called Game Time. It doesn't stop, by the way, with the NBA. They've got NHL tickets, Major League Baseball tickets. By the way, those Major League Baseball games, they last 30 minutes less, so get there early. They've also got concerts and comedy shows. They've got everything at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, and the redeem code is Colin, C-O-L-I-N. $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app, enter the code Colin, C-O-L-I-N, for $20 off. Here we go. NBA playoffs, baseball season just starting here in April, NHL as well. No matter where you live, get out, have some fun this week and this year. Download the Game Time app, last-minute ticket deals, lowest prices guaranteed. So it does appear in the draft starting Thursday, Bryce Young goes number 1. Will Levis, now the betting markets think Will Levis is the number 2 pick. I'm going to throw something at you. You know Robert Irsay, or Jim Irsay, excuse me. You know Jim Irsay. I'm going to throw something at you. I said, Will Levis is talented enough that and we do this in our lives with purchases of a lot of things, convertible sports cars, vacations, that it is what you talk yourself into. I can see Irsay, Jim saying, okay, I've been old and unathletic with Phillip Rivers and Matt Ryan and expensive. But this kid is smart, mobile, with a big arm. If you squint, Mike, you can see some Andrew Luck.
Or Josh Allen, maybe not.
Well, but Josh Allen, came from a small program and was raw. Will Levis isn't that raw.
Yeah, that's
SEC
true.
Football won 17 games. And I think you can see what you want to. I can see Jim Irsay thinking, not expensive, moves like Andrew. Andrew was thick. This kid's thick.
Yeah.
This kid's got a better arm. Mom went to Yale. I can see the Colts moving up or crossing their fingers. But I think, can you see Irsay? We know he likes quarterback because he talked about Bryce Young 2 months ago.
Yeah. Well, quick aside, I'm taking everyone's word for it that this kid's intelligent, but I got to tell you, as one of the members of the Mayophobia Society, very publicly, the fact that he says that he puts mayonnaise in his coffee, apparently,
I know,
it makes me question just a lot of things about the world and about him.
Right.
So I'm just going to chalk that one up to some weird outlier and assume that he's an intelligent guy. So on a serious note, yeah, I do think Irsay likes the idea of making a splash. I do think he has seen life without the quarterback situation settled with a lot else to be excited about, and it has not been the life he's wanted as an owner. And I do think we do all talk ourselves into purchases, but if you can really get a franchise quarterback, I don't care, man. Like, even the Rams with Stafford, who are probably like, yeah, we'd trade him now. It'll go down as worth it to them that they traded all that stuff to get that Super Bowl season out of Matthew Stafford. And so I've always felt with the draft, look, if you want someone that badly, let alone a quarterback, and you're in position to maybe do it, dude, do it. Don't get cute. I don't care if I hope he's there at 5, we might be able to trade to 7 and get him. Just, I say when it's a quarterback you're that excited about, don't do that. Just go up and get him. Fine, cool. Even the 49ers, like when they went up to 3, good. You like someone that much? Good. Now, it may turn out that Trey Lance doesn't end up being that good. It may turn out that he wasn't the one Kyle was thinking of when he made the trade, but that's a whole other story. But whatever. I love that process, right or wrong. If you're wrong, it's going to be rough on your franchise, but, we miss 100% of the shots we don't take. I think the only concern I have, and the caveat to that is, because people get so worked up about the draft and we overvalue it in terms of impact as a culture and internally in the NFL, I think there's a tendency for all these months to get yourself worked into a lather and you talk yourself into it. Maybe if you looked at it more impassively, you'd say, well, yeah, there's some good things about this kid, but his value probably is this. But you met him, you had dinner with him, you saw him at his pro day, you're looking at the film and you need a quarterback and you're like, man, I just love this guy. So, be careful doing that. But if you, Jim Irsay and Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen are doing this and you've decided we really think this guy could be that, then I don't care if you trade up, go get him.
Finally, the 49ers, I would regret not asking you this because you're so tied in. When they went and traded for Sam Darnold or acquired Sam Darnold, I could argue Darnold is a older version of Trey Lance. Stocky, athletic, not aesthetically pleasing as a thrower or accurate on a consistent basis, but capable of playing, making plays. He's a little Trey Lance. Not always pretty, but can work and move the chains. And when they did that, Trey Lance was in trouble. The Sam Darnold acquisition, viewed by many, was just, he'll just sit on the bench. But in fact, they look at him as a guy that may start in September, and it probably signaled the end of Trey Lance in San Francisco.
I've revised my opinion, and it is now more aligned with yours. I admit that when they first signed him, I thought, it's another guy. And, they, unlike Lance, who they were so high on his intelligence, and still are, Darnold was never, aligned in that way with Kyle's thinking, in my opinion. I'm not calling Sam Darnold unintelligent. I'm just saying it didn't pop out at people during the pre-draft process. But there are a lot of similarities, including the exact position where they were drafted. But I now think this, based on how it has played out and based on who I've talked to. They are a little more excited about Sam Darnold than I thought. And the way that part of the way I know that is that this Trey Lance noise, it's one thing to answer a question and say, well, listen, we always listen to offers, but we think Trey's going to be on our team, which both Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch did last month. But when a report comes out that's like, hey, the 49ers are taking calls on Trey Lance, and it's not immediately challenged by, Kyle could have texted me or someone else and been like, "That I'm telling you, dude, that's bullshit. Excuse me. That's BS. Put it out." They didn't do that. And so, in my opinion, yes, they are listening to Trey Lance offers. No, those offers have not been close to good, or they wouldn't now be saying, well, we think Trey's going to still be on our team. We don't know. A good one could still come, but it hasn't. And I think they feel pretty good about Purdy, too, to be in the Trey Lance fire sale market potentially. And maybe they won't. Maybe they'll just keep him and hold on to him for a year and try to develop him.
Well, considering how raw Trey Lance is, you can't keep the minute Purdy is available to play. You can't be sharing snaps with three guys. Somebody's going to get moved, and it's not going to be Purdy and Sam Darnold. So to me, Trey Lance isn't a polished version of Trey Lance. So the minute Purdy can take snaps and play, you have to move off one of them and get them real. This franchise is a Super Bowl roster. I still think it's the best roster in football, right?
Yeah. And they want the rookie deal or the cheap deal in terms of Darnold. They want that model. And with Purdy healthy, they absolutely have it. But they want to pay Bosa. They want to pay as many guys as they can, load up in this next year or two still, and have a quarterback on a very cheap deal to make that work. Now, maybe Trey Lance over the offseason can wow them in a way that he clearly didn't last year, or they don't re-sign Jimmy as a hedge. And I do think they have PTSD, as they should, from the NFC Championship game, and probably want 3, though they may draft one or sign a rookie free agent coming up, and that may end up being part of that equation. But, I just think, look, they believe that there's something there with Trey Lance potentially, but they don't have time to wait, as you said.
That's right.
And I also, one other thing, there's this thing where, well, Trey Lance is on the market, and hey, keep an eye on Houston and Tennessee. D'Amico was there, and Slowick, and Rand Carthon's the GM of Tennessee. If you were part of an organization that drafted a guy that high with that much investment, the 3 ones, and he hasn't been stepping into that in a way that was satisfactory, you probably know more about Trey Lance than Joe Fan. And Joe Fan, who's assuming, oh, well, Trey Lance was there with Rand Carthon. I think it makes it less likely that Tennessee or Houston comes and gets him unless Rand privately or D'Amico and Slowick privately just thought Trey wasn't getting his chance and he was so good. Probably they're more aligned with what Kyle and John Lynch think. And they're like, hasn't shown it yet. So are you going to go out and blow the Niners away with a 2 and try to get Trey Lance? I think don't look at those teams. Look at teams where they might not know as much.
Yep. Mike Silver, great insight on Trey Lance and the Niners quarterback situation. Aaron Rodgers, as always, and Jim Irsay, who he knows very, very well.
He's wearing number 8 again, Colin.
I saw that.
Cal. There you go.
I saw that. I see that, and all I think about is that game at the Coliseum. That heart
coming right to me in the end zone. I was finally going to get my Rose Bowl, Colin. Should have got it that year anyway, but that's a long story. I think he completed 20 passes in a row, but
yeah,
SC was tough, man. They were tough.
I was at a wedding on the Columbia River in Oregon, watching that game with friends, having a cocktail at the back bar, and that was a good USC team. It was and remember back then, Aaron had kind of a stiffness to his to his drop. We're all like, "Who's Aaron Rodgers? This guy looks great."
I know, and really special teams won that game. They had a return, and they had some other special teams play. It was a great game. Cal was number 3 in the country at the end of the season. The Rose Bowl wanted them desperately because SC was going to the then BCS title game. The Rose Bowl wanted them desperately. It's our holy grail. Everybody wanted Cal in the Rose Bowl. But all these rules that no longer exist, including Utah being good before the Pac-12 and Notre Dame, all these things happened, and then a hurricane delayed the Cal Southern Miss game, and then votes, Mac Brown pandering for votes, and somehow Cal ended up in the Holiday Bowl. Send me thoughts and prayers. I'm still not over it, but maybe, Colin, someday before I die, Cal will go to the Rose Bowl, but I'm not counting on it.
Good seeing you, buddy.
Thank you.